How's it going, everyone? I'm your host, Josh, for this page, Travel Down to Dusk. As always, I appreciate all listening. I appreciate you taking the time to hop on my page, give me the time of day. I know there's a lot of other sites out there, a lot of other things you could be doing, so always appreciated. Love the support. And again, I will always reiterate this, not a travel expert, merely have experience traveling. A lot of people ask me for advice, and I got to the point where it's just like, instead of just giving it to them, why don't I create a page where I go over all the tools, all the things that I do, my strategies, and share that with everyone else. Hopefully you find some value out of this. Hopefully, if it is, please drop something in the comments. Share what you liked, share what you didn't like. Tell me if I'm doing something wrong or doing something differently, or you think there's a process that you do better. Love to hear it. Love to try different things. For today's video, I'll be covering step 5 in my travel planning process. It's probably the most important one, picking out the flight. Now, I'm going to show you a couple tools that I use, Skyscanner. Another tool that you use is Hopper. I'm not as familiar with that one, but it's still a great tool that a lot of people use. And I'll show you just kind of how I go about my process in picking out my flights. Hope you find some value out of this. Now, without further ado, I'm going to flip over to my computer and show you my process in picking out a flight. It's not the most challenging step. In fact, this video is probably going to be pretty short. The site that I use for picking out a flight is Skyscanner. Now, this is a great tool to use to find some of the best prices online for your flight. Now, what you might want to do is, if you do log on to Skyscanner quite a bit, is you want to go incognito mode. So, is that Control Shift? And yeah. And you do this because sometimes Google will store your data, and if you're on Skyscanner a lot, they might jack up the prices on you because they know you're a common flyer or you go on this site quite a bit. And not really, it never really has happened for me, but I know people in the past that have sworn by this. They've sworn that they've checked on Google without going incognito mode versus going incognito mode, and it saved them a bunch of money. So I guess this extra little step doesn't hurt too much. So what you're going to want to do is depending on what you're going to do, I mean, one-way trip, multi-city, round trip, depending on if you're going to fly out of the same city, then you're going to want to do a round trip. We're going to use London for this example, just because it's what I've used in previous videos. All right, we're going to do from Miami, because I'm from South Florida. All right, and then we're going to do June 10th. And I think this whole month, right? So if you pick on June, search flights. So you do the whole month route, it's going to give you a variety of options, ranging by the cheapest. A ticket for $400 round trip is pretty cheap to London. So as you can see, the prices vary depending on the time. Alrighty. So that's one way you can go about it. If you want to just go about it in the more direct route, just go do it this way. Say I want to do by whole month. I want to do a specific date. Let's do 10th, flying out the 13th. Depending on how many people you want to travel with or you're traveling with, maybe you want to make sure it's nonstop flights only. I want to do nearby airports because maybe an airport near Heathrow or somewhere else is a little bit cheaper. You have that options. I kind of keep it simple. I'll do Miami to London, pick out the dates, enter the amount of people that are traveling. So I'll just do myself for this example, and you see what pops up. Alrighty. So give it a little bit of time. It's going to load up. It's going to give you different options. It looks like Air France might be the cheapest. That's a sponsored one, so maybe don't trust that one. Let's see, British Airways. It takes a minute to load. I guess while it's loading, I can go over, so you have the option to do nonstop flights. You want to do one stop, obviously it's going to be a little bit cheaper. 2 stops, you can, pick out when you want to fly out. Say you want to leave, 3 p.m. the latest because you got to work that day. Say you don't want to return super late, so you can edit that. You want to return before 12 p.m. Trip duration, no way do I want to be on a flight forever, so you can edit that. Make sure that your layovers aren't super long. I think this layover is No, never mind. That's the total length and trip. So it doesn't really cover the layout until you click into it. You can filter by which airline you want to use. If you want to use Delta, if you want to use British Airways, or you don't like, JetBlue, for example. I like JetBlue, just using it as an example. You can take it out. It's going to remove JetBlue from any of the flying options. So this pretty easy tool to use, pretty self-explanatory. Say you want to fly, 4 p.m., arrive at 6. It looks like a nonstop flight. Looks like a pretty good deal. All right, American Airlines, it is. Pick it. And then it's going to show you which actual third-party sites you'll book through. So this isn't a booking site. It's merely a site to use to find the cheapest flights on the internet, which is why I like it, because it's going to provide it's not a one-stop shop. It provides you different, sites to go to. So you got Orbitz, you got Expedia, you got Travel Genius. I'm not familiar with that one. British Airways. You can also use this site to find the flight that you want and go directly to the airline if you want to book directly through the airline. And typically it will have the prices. Usually they match up. If you feel more comfortable booking through the airline directly, that's another way to go about it. So then you want to book it, you hit select, through Expedia, it's going to pull it up, yada yada. And that's pretty much my process in figuring out how I want to go about my flying. Now, one tip that I'll recommend, or something I want to bring up, is that when I do pick up my flights, and if I'm traveling to somewhere like London, where it jumps 5 hours ahead, you might want to book something that's, at night, so that you arrive at 8 a.m. the next day. You're not really wasting any travel time, right? You get to basically work a full day. I don't know when you get out of work. It's an international flight, so you're probably going to take the day off regardless, unless, maybe you do it at 5:30. So you do 6 p.m. and arrive at 11 a.m. Or if you make sure it's nonstop, let's see what they got for that. So nonstop, you can literally work an entire day and arrive there at 10:50 a.m. the next day. Now, the only reason I recommend doing this is you don't have to burn a day of PTO. And if you're limited on PTO days, that's crucial. That's very important to you. Another thing is you can sleep on your flight. And this way you almost kind of bypass jet lag. If you get your 8 hours of sleep on this flight, wake up at 10:50, refreshed, ready to go, take on the day, do whatever you plan on that day. You don't lose any travel time. You kind of avoid jet lag, albeit it's going to take probably a few nights sleeping there, watching the sunset to actually really avoid jet lag. But this is just a tip that I do, something I try to do to maximize my days, because I know with my PTO and working, I don't want to take too many days off in a row. I don't want to, or I'm also limited on PTO days in general. So this is a good way to maximize your time off, fit in a great weekend trip, whatever it is you want to do. This is one of my biggest tips on maximizing your time while traveling. And if you're like me, that's probably going to be a huge plus for you. So I highly recommend doing that. Let's see, anything else on Skyscanner? I think that about covers it. If anyone else has any tips or has any other tools or anything that you want to use for Skyscanner, please let me know. More than happy to try it out and learn a different method. The other thing I want to bring up is Hopper. I don't use Hopper that often. I'll be honest on that one. I've used it before, but I'm not an expert by any means. I've used it like maybe once. But what is good about Hopper is if you weren't set on a certain time of traveling, or you want to go somewhere, you can just put, hey, I want to go to Atlanta, and you can book the time that you want to go. And Hopper has an algorithm and underlying technology that it uses to tell you when you'll basically have the cheapest booking date. So say, for example, you book for July 10th, and the algorithm reads that on May 15th you will have the cheapest window, or you find the cheapest flight to Hopper, or not to Hopper, to London, using the Hopper app. The same thing applies to, I think, hotel bookings. It'll literally predict when it'll be the cheapest time to book a hotel room or a flight. So that's kind of how the brains behind Hopper. I'm not that familiar with it, to be honest. We can go ahead and just try it out, see. I don't know how good the desktop version is versus the app that you can get on your phone. But looking on here, it looks like you can get some prices. All right, let's say you want to, book here, yada. Kind of looks like very similar to other apps. So again, I feel like the app is a little bit better on the phone, albeit I haven't used this specific app in a while. So maybe they've had some updates, or maybe they were purchased by. It looks like they were purchased by TripAdvisor. So maybe they've changed the whole layout on how it actually works. So maybe I'll do a separate video where I actually try and use Hopper, but I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention it in the flights and booking portion of my process. Again, I always use Skyscanner. It's never let me down. It's a foolproof way of finding probably the cheapest flight and time when you're booking a flight. So that's what I would recommend. That pretty much covers what I wanted to go over in this video. Just my process in picking out a flight, the tools that I use, the tool or website that I use, and a tool that other people typically have used in the past with success. Hopper is a good app. I just am not all that familiar with it. I primarily use Skyscanner. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is maximizing your days on PTO and travel time. That way you're not losing a day when if traveling. You're not burning a day of PTO for just sitting in a plane. That kind of sucks. So always recommend booking the night before, especially if you're jumping ahead in the time zones, and being able to sleep on the plane just to arrive the next day and maximize your time off, because that's what it's all about, maximizing your time, making traveling fun and easy. So I hope this was helpful. Hope you found some value out of this. Again, if you have a better way of doing things, please let me know. Please share it. If you like this video, share what you liked, share what you didn't like. So just whatever it is you want to do, just drop it in the comments. More than happy to take a look at it, or any of the different methods that you might be using. But thanks again for listening, and I hope you found some value out of this.